Hey, this is Raphael with Constructive Conversations, and today we've got another guest from the trades. His name's Derrick. Hey, Derrick, how about introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about yourself and your company?
Sure. My name is Derrick Carter, and I co-own a business with my father. It's called CNC Professional Painting. Um, Dad has been in business for over 30 years, um, he's been doing things for quite a bit of while now. So I'm kind of the fresh kid on the block, doing some, I guess, newer and up-to-date things with him now.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm gonna ask some of these questions. I'm gonna just ask, and if you can, just be like, boom, like, you know what I mean, like answer them kind of like bluntly. You know what I
Blunt.
mean?
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, hey, Derrick, if you could summarize your journey so far in the business with your dad, if you could relate it to a movie, what movie would that be?
Titanic.
Titanic. Well, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing?
Um, Both, right?
Hmm. Talk to
There's,
us about that.
yeah, it has its ups and downs. I think being working with family, there's a level of, you know, it being personal, and sometimes business, can't be personal. It has to be about business. So, um, yeah, it has its ups and downs, its ebbs and flows, but ultimately, it being family oriented is something that's really nice.
What's the most memorable moment that you've had working with your father?
The most memorable moment with my father, probably um, seeing people recognize him. When we go into places and seeing other people, just show him a level of honor and respect and things like that. Seeing the that him doing good business has created a good name for himself. So um, yeah, seeing things like that probably the most memorable thing.
What would you say has been one of your most memorable oops while being on the job?
Oops. Yeah, I would say working on a commercial project and not having all the details and kind of figuring my way out and not ever experiencing it before, using the wrong colors probably, which ended up costing us to have to do we had to pay to do the job instead of turning a profit. But it was a
How did
great
that happen?
experience.
Like, what happened to lead to that?
So initially, there were colors that could be spec'd through, like Benjamin Moore, for example, or Sherwin Williams, and Sherwin Williams said we could get this color, be no problem. And then when it came down to it, I went to the store and said, "Hey, we need 150 gallons of this specific type of red," and they didn't carry a base for it. So I should have did a little more research and been a little bit more thorough, and that would have saved us on that job. So
How much did it cost you?
I would say about between $8,000 and $10,000.
Ooh, who paid
Yeah.
for it?
Well, us, the company, me.
How'd your dad handle that?
um, with a lot of grace, he said, "Son, in this business, you're going to make mistakes," and he's like, "It's about how you come back from it, and how you deal with it, how you respond to situations, not just stay focused on what's happening." So, you know, he's he's an old timer, so he's like, been around block. You don't learn nothing if you don't make any mistakes. So,
That's cool.
yeah,
Level headed, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So, what did you do differently? Like, what did you learn? How would you handle that situation now that would have prevented that if you're faced with the same thing today?
Um, Definitely just being more thorough, dotting all my I's, crossing my T's, having attention to detail and things like that. Making some calls beforehand instead of making assumptions like, oh, it's paint is paint.
Hmm. Hmm.
So just, yeah, getting a little bit more information and prepping the way that I need to make sure, we don't
Hmm.
deal with a situation like that again.
Cool. So you're taking over the family business out here.
hmm
Yeah. How'd that come about?
Well, it's an interesting story. Like most kids, or I would say majority of kids that have been in businesses with families, the children don't really want to have much to do with the business. I want to do my own path and And so actually that was me as well. I was like, who wants to paint? Like painting is boring.
Hmm.
Thinking I want to have meaning and purpose. So I joined the military and went that route for a while, and then I ended up starting my own small construction business, and ended up doing that, and did well for myself. 2 years ago, after went on a journey, healing journey, went traveling, and started doing some inner work and paying attention to things of the mind, and all these different things. And then dad called me about a year ago. Was like, hey, I'm getting older. Would you like to come back and actually start working again?
Hmm.
So I was like, I guess it's about that time. So yeah, about a year ago, I've always been decent with business, but I never took the time to really master a trade. So that's what this process this past year has been about for me.
So yeah, what have you done to master, the painting business? Like, what is some of the biggest things you've learned and implemented to do that?
Yeah, being more hands-on, contracting is something, getting the numbers right, and that's one aspect of the job. But as far as becoming a master of the trade is just going in and putting in the work. Learning from experienced people that have been working with us and really asking the right questions,
Hmm.
and just not being scared and going out there even if you don't know something. Just put your hands on it and try it, and then developing the skill that it takes to be consistent and committed to it.
What do you think is the biggest thing that needs to be done during the process in order to ensure, like, what is the most important process about painting to ensure the highest level of quality of work from your experience?
Definitely prep work. In my experience, you know, taking the necessary time to have everything in order, it just ensures a more successful, outcome for your job. So, if that's putting in, drop cloths, putting plastic, putting paper down, um, the caulking and puttying and things like that, all that, it's more of the time consuming thing, but putting the paint on is pretty easy once you get to rolling, cutting in, and it's almost like second nature.
Mhm.
So I would say the prep work is.
One of the things that I failed at in my career is when someone asked me at one point in time, and I didn't know how to answer the question. They asked me, well, hey, why should I hire you
Mhm.
over, the other 10 other builders that I passed on the way to your office? What makes you different? What makes you stand out? Why should I spend my money with you?
Mhm.
And I completely bombed that question. So I want to ask you the same thing to see how you respond to a question like that. So if it's like, hey, why should I hire you, Derek, on for painting versus the other 10 painters that I passed on the way here to this meeting? What would your response to be to a question like that?
My response would be that because we're the best, we're gonna deliver a professional quality service to you. You've got somebody that is hands-on in the field, dealing with your projects. Somebody that you can call that's reliable, that's going to pick up the phone, um, that values principle, and sees excellence in what they're doing. So, I'm going to go above and beyond. I'll go that extra, 10% on top of the 100.
Hmm.
So I think that's be a reason that you would choose me over somebody else.
So why painting? I mean, I understand about family business or whatnot, but why painting?
Well, painting is one of those trades. It's definitely a skill. It's a craft, but I feel that the profit margin in painting is actually pretty good, as far as the material, the time, the effort. It's really a skill. So once you develop your skill, um, you're able to make good money and pretty quickly.
What's the most rewarding part about the painting business?
The customers' faces, seeing the transformation. When you put paint on something, it really just changes the complete look of
Mhm.
any project that you're working on. So,
Interesting.
the from here to there, wow, look at this.
So I tell some of my folks that being in the position we're in, we handle the projects from start to finish,
Hmm.
from drawing the blueprints to the engineering to the takeoffs, all the way down to the final trades like painting and even handing over the keys. Um, and I tell people, and they seem to be surprised when I say this. I ask someone, hey, Mark, hey, whoever, what do you think is the most important trade in the construction industry, which one do you think matters the most?
Mm.
And I'm always surprised by the answers that I get.
Mm-hmm.
And no one has yet answered it to what I believe is the correct answer. So I ask you, out of all the trades,
Mm-hmm.
you've got brick masonry, you've got concrete that holds the structure, holds everything together. You've
Mm-hmm.
got framing, roofing, landscaping. Which trade do you think is the most important portion of the whole entire process?
Mm.
Well, let me
Yeah,
rephrase that.
sure,
Maybe not the most important because that's subjective.
sure.
Which one do you think makes the biggest difference?
Well, um, kind of like with life, the foundation, right? If the foundation isn't stable, then everything else that goes on top of it isn't going to be 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 good, I guess. And they each, it's kind of it's a hard question to answer because, it takes all of them to make the process go.
Mhm.
I really do think the finishing is a very important aspect of the process because at the end, the customer is going to be looking at the end result. They're not going to be able to look at your girders underneath or
Mhm.
I mean, sure that there might be some that are a little more privy to certain knowledge and
Yeah.
they're going to be looking at things, but as far as that thing that they're looking at. I mean, they're looking at the paint. They're looking at the carpenters as well, how well that wood is cut and
Yeah, I
things like
talked to
that.
all kind of different trades, and down where I'm at, grew up with brick masons, every single trade. And what I've realized being in the business as long as I have and working with every trade year in and year out
Mm,
is that yes, the foundation is the most important process, I would
mm,
say, is getting that correct because that's what everything's built upon.
mhm,
However, what I've realized is, and it was quite surprising how much painting
mm.
is the deciding factor on how you get judged, whether or not if you've done a great job or not.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
you can put all this energy and effort toting, carrying blocks, bags of cement, and all this manual intensive and heavy duty labor
Hmm.
that we painstakingly go through to build these structures. And it's just the reality of the business to where that gets overlooked a lot of times. It
Hmm.
gets not necessarily dismissed, but looked past.
Hmm.
And then when you're done, you guys as trades are the ones that we get judged by, primarily the sheetrock finishing
Yes.
and the painters.
Hmm.
Now, of course, we have to have done everything else correctly, build a strong foundation, have structural integrity, put string lines on our walls so your walls don't have all these rolls in them
Hmm.
with having your framing out of whack and all of that. But when we walk the jobs at the end with the clients, by far they're looking at the finishing.
Yes.
And at least with us, the idea is that, well, we know everything, has been taken care of, but if that paint job isn't on point, it questions everything.
Yes.
If that's not on point and they go to seeing the stuff that's visually not looking right,
Hmm.
it can undermine everything that's been going on in the project from the very beginning.
Hmm.
So you guys are trade, in my opinion, is probably, you know, the most important trade with a caveat, with the exception of knowing that everything else has to be on point. That's a given. That's kind of, to me, that's the baseline.
Right. Yeah.
And what I found with working with a lot of painters is that the thing that separates the people who are really great at painting
Hmm.
is that they always do the basics right.
Hmm.
The prep work. You mentioned the prep work, and I would agree. Prep work is the foundation, but there are some little tips and tricks, and I think that goes along with every industry. So I want
Hmm.
to ask you, if I was to say, hey, what is some of the top two or three industry secrets or tips that you guys follow to guarantee you're able to deliver on a finished painting job that's heads and shoulders above everybody else's? What would you say are some of the things that you guys do differently that the average painter doesn't do to ensure when you're walking in and looking at a finished product, everybody's like, wow, what I'm looking at? The typical painter, you're going to see from here and there paint runs,
Hmm.
sagging,
Hmm.
look at the trim. And there's different levels of, you got spec homes, you've got
Sure.
semi custom homes, you've got custom homes, then you've got the luxury, Mac Daddy homes, right?
Yeah.
So, and I get that. Look, but
Yeah.
my thing is, and at least with us, is I like to have teams to where if we can work with the worst case scenario
Mhm.
and say the custom homes, even though you've got a few steps above that, and build a process to where you can deliver that 9.5 quality or that
Mhm.
9 to 9.5 quality, meaning like you're recessing your trim nails,
Mhm.
and whatever those extra steps are to get it to a point to where you can't even tell that it was done on site.
Mhm.
Number one, are you guys able to deliver that type of quality? And just so the expectation, you can see what I'm visualizing is how when you have a pre mold of, say, a window casing, you
Mhm.
don't see any spots where any nails are at. You look through it, it looks all seamless. You can't even hardly see any imperfections.
Mhm.
Are you guys able to deliver to that high of an expectation?
Mhm.
You are?
Yes,
And
sir.
how do you get to that point? Like you mentioned the prep stages, right? So
Mhm.
kind of walk us step by step on what it would take to where if we were, say, redoing this room and the goal was, hey, Derek, when I come in, here's my expectation. When I look at the trim, we're going to have LED lights. It's going to be illuminated really well.
Mhm.
And the goal is I don't want to see where the nail heads are. I want a seamless transition, even in my 45s. Of course, don't want the paint runs, don't want the sagging. And
Mhm.
we want this trim work to look as if it was than in a manufacturing environment.
Mhm.
It says, yes, we can do that. And I'm going to say, well, how would you go about doing that?
Well, just like you mentioned, prepping. So there are different products and things that you can use that, like you said, vary between the expected, I guess, quality that they're looking for.
Right.
So, with a custom home, something of that nature, instead of using your typical putty, you'd
Hmm.
use something like a wood filler, which
Hmm.
is more, it hardens a little more. With putty, if you were to get with it on an LED light, you still see a small kind of indention,
Hmm.
just because putty just, it shrinks with
Shrinks.
times
Yeah.
and with time and things like that. And then even when you put the paint over it, there's still, some of those imperfections in the paint. So using, a little bit of excess wood filler and then going back over it and sanding it properly. Then, of course, you don't just put any sander on it. You get the appropriate grit for the project that you're working on.
Hmm.
Um, so that's kind of how you would ensure that your trim work and things like that are gonna be looking with no blemishes and things of that nature. And then another big thing is the type of tips that you use on your sprayer. So a brush and roll scenario versus spraying, one of the products on. There, we deal with Sherwin Williams pretty uh, regularly, so they offer different size tips that project a larger span for how the paint is being distributed outside of the gun. So,
Hmm.
for cabinetry and trim and things like that, there are these green tips that are more narrow, and so and then that's all about application as well. So, when you were to go to spray something, you wouldn't start spraying something directly onto it. You kind of roll, you roll your sprayer on it and you roll
Hmm.
it back, and that gives it that nice, even finish. So that's something that is really big as far as trim work and woodwork is concerned. And your walls, typically you'd want to have uh, three people rolling a wall. You'd have a person up top cutting and then a person down low cutting, and you have a person rolling the wall. And so that would give, especially when you're using a paint with a sheen on it and things
Hmm.
like that, and it doesn't dry as evenly. If you have a three-man crew running, you can be doing it at the same time, and then the last part of the process would be to roll the paint onto the wall, and that kind of just when it's put on while it's wet, that's how it looks, super even and nice and things
Is
like
that what? Is that what? Is that what you would say gets rid of what they call the hat banding?
Mhm. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Or any runs, holidays, or anything like that, where typically if you're looking up and you see like a little small streak at the
Mhm.
top of it, so what kind of eliminates that is, having everything wet at one time and doing it
Mhm.
all at once, and that allows it to dry
Yeah,
nice and
same.
even. Mhm.
Now, say like you did that, and hypothetically, we go into this room, use
Mhm.
the wood filler, and then as I'm looking at or as our team is inspecting it, we can still tell, you got dents, dings in the trim. So you got to
Mhm.
fill that in and fill it,
Mhm.
fill it in and sand it out. but you could still see that. And I say, okay, Derek, I see the wood fit. We've tried the wood filler. The wood filler doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, but we gotta get this to the point to this higher level.
Mm-hmm.
What would be your next steps to what would be your
Ensure
next thing to try?
that
Yeah.
quality. The nice thing is when you have friends in the industry as well, and representatives for the paint stores and things like that. My first thing would be to call our representative at Sherwin Williams. Hey, we tried wood filler. We tried the product that you guys recommended, but it's still not quite delivering exactly what we're looking for. What are some other resources? What are different things that we can use or different processes? That's the thing. We're always open to learn. We're growing
That's what
as
I
a
was getting
business.
at, because the thing that we've had to learn to do is find people who are open
Mm-hmm.
to try new things,
Mm-hmm.
because when the industry's here and the expectations here, that's normal. We
Mm-hmm.
all know that. You walk in, and a lot of times what we'll hear, oh well, we can't do perfection, da da da. What we look to do here is we know we're not perfect. Nobody's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
However, we don't want to use that as a crutch to not be excellent.
Yes.
There's average, there's excellence, and then there's that ever elusive, you know, idea of perfection.
Mm-hmm.
We're not here to even think that we're going to be perfect. We just want to be excellent. So what we do is we'll find someone who's hungry, who's willing, who got the same mindset.
Mm-hmm.
We've uh, we've had a few subcontractors, partners that we've teamed with, and kind of took the expectation from here and have gotten them to there. And what that looks like in an event like that, here's the way we would normally handle that. And this, give the viewers kind of like a little behind the scenes peek of how we internally would work together. So as we're
Sure.
building our relationship, we would see that, and myself or Kyle or Kennedy or someone on a team, as you're going through that, I was like, yeah. And we like to let people do and try what they're naturally comfortable with
Mm-hmm.
out of the gates. Maybe that'll get it.
Mm-hmm.
But if that doesn't get us to that expectation, we'll come along and say, well, hey, let's consider trying Dridex. Have you used that before?
Dried X, no.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Dridex, da da da. Here's the pros. Here's the cons. Da da. Or have you considered using Bondo?
Mm-hmm.
On the trim work. Here's the way we do it. Here's the steps. Here's the process. Let's try one room. Let's try this window, this door as a test pilot. Let's get
Mm-hmm.
it, get a plan figured out. Where it normally will go off course is a lot of people's reception.
Mm-hmm.
Number one is the environment. Well, hey, I'm here. First thing we do is when you start doing that, you start thinking, what? I'm losing money,
Right, right,
right?
right.
So those are the struggles. So the type of folks that we try to team up with to build a long lasting relationship is like, hey, with anything, there's a cost of tuition.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you will be open minded,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to show you how to elevate the level from where you're at to get to a higher level, which is what we're after.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's going to benefit you. Of course, it's going to benefit us. Let's do this. Yeah, let's take the next, few hours. Let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
But where it struggles a lot is a lot of people don't want to do that,
Right,
right? But
right,
everybody wants to say that we're the best,
right,
and
right.
we do the best work.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to prove it when money's on the line. You've got four people you're paying by the hour, and you're
Mm-hmm.
all trying to learn something new.
That's right. Yeah.
So we don't mind. I mean, it's costing us money too. It's our
Mm-hmm.
resources, our time. But
Mm-hmm.
what I have found is that we did this a couple of times
Mm-hmm.
with painter in this particular trade, for instance, and the results that we've gotten when it works is amazing. I
Yeah.
mean, the experience. You imagine walking in with the most critical set of eyes that you're going to face, which
Mm-hmm.
is normally someone who's spending that $500,000 or $1 million in
Yeah.
their custom home that they are going to spend the rest of their life paying for, or
Mm-hmm.
spent the time saving up money to buy for it. They're going to go in there, and I know the woes of the blue tape.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But imagine having that critical eye walking into a space,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're just like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens on my end, they'll pull me to the side and say, hey, ever who this painter is that you've got to paint this?
Mm-hmm.
My goodness, it's the best painters I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
I've had the joy of witnessing that.
Mm-hmm.
I've been told before that was nearly impossible because, oh, you're expecting perfection.
Yeah. Right.
We've gotten close to it. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? And I know
Mm-hmm.
it's attainable. And what I've seen is that if we're willing to adapt a new process,
Mm-hmm.
figure out what works, of course, it's going to take us a lot longer while we're figuring it out. But as you do it, you figure out, okay, I can do this process a little bit
Mm-hmm.
quicker and faster. But the idea is over time, you're able to consistently deliver at a 95 98% expectancy as far as attaining close to perfection.
Right.
But now, over time, you can do that more quickly, more efficiently, and that's the only way that you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where you start getting a competitive edge.
Mm-hmm.
Is now you're able to deliver consistently in a more timely and expedient manner that higher quality where most people aren't going to do it because they weren't even open to it. So
Right.
we've been through that, and that's what we're looking to do.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like you're open to that. We don't mind, taking the time, investing into the right companies, the right subcontractors, the right partners
Mm-hmm.
to help them with that. We just want to know that the people are receptive to it. Is that something that you guys sounds like you are? But I want to make sure I don't want to assume.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's all a learning process, and you cut yourself off from growth the moment you think you got it figured out. So yeah, always a student in whatever, no matter how much of a master you think you're at,
Hmm.
doing whatever. Yeah, it's always about being open to receive constructive
Hmm.
criticism, and I think that's just the mature, business thing to do. You know it's a team effort, and so when you're able to, and it only makes you better as a company. It makes everybody look good. So yeah, that's definitely something, and where me taking over the business is really where the direction I'm trying to head in, and
So, what is that direction like? What's your vision?
my vision for the business is to have something, is to build a legacy for my children that are, I have two boys, so
Mhm.
it's to create a stable foundation for them that they can, if they would like, step into something that was a well-oiled machine, had all the processes and work set up for moving forward into the future and things like that. So yeah, my vision is just to create a well-oiled machine, develop these processes
Mhm.
that become like second nature, and then implement those things and share them with the people that I'm working with. Develop teams and
Mhm.
people who are willing. I try to bring people in that we're working with who are on the
How are
same
you
page.
managing that? Because that's all of our struggles, especially in the construction industry. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
having people that will number one just show up is
Yes.
the first bar,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so if you can get that, most of us think we've won the game. Like, okay, at least we've got people to show up.
Mm-hmm.
And I, for one, I think I'm just wired a little bit differently. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you know, if we're going to just show up, we might as well not even try. I mean, like, what
Mm-hmm.
is the point in that?
Yeah.
But in the industry end, that seems to be the norm. Like, what is your thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how is your view on that? And how do you try to change the mindset of the people that's working with you or coming on your team? Or
Mm-hmm.
where are you at in that journey? Are you just getting started with that or?
Yeah, it's definitely a quality over quantity type thing, because everybody can talk real well, and like you said, they'll come in at, hey, I'm going to do this, do this, do this, and then over a period of time, that consistency just isn't there, commitment and things like that. But just like with everything, you have to find people with the right mindset, and I think like will attract like.
Mhm.
If I'm living by a certain way and I'm doing things a certain way, words almost, you know,
Mhm.
it's about action at the end of the day, and how you're showing up. So
Mhm.
yeah, as far as where I'm at in the process with that, yeah, I've been able to cultivate, a few small teams. For one instance, I have a husband and wife that work together, and so they just have a great way of, there is no, how do you say, especially in the construction industry, there's a lot of blah blah, on the job site. Like you said, people not showing up or having this issue or that issue, and
Mhm.
so it's nice when you can find people who are really willing to work as a team,
Mhm.
and so. It's more of a principle thing. People who live by principle, they're going to deliver that on their because their life is, their work. So
Mhm.
they're not there just solely for a paycheck. Now,
Right.
with that being said, we're all here to make money. We
Mhm.
wouldn't be in business if that wasn't a goal. But that's not the most important thing. Because the money, in my opinion, at least it comes with delivering that. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of how it's been for me. Just give people opportunities, and also being an effective communicator.
Mhm.
There's a fine dance between having an expectation, being understanding, doing what you have to do, and then um, you know, working with people,
Yeah.
so like, obviously if you're making the same mistakes, but anybody who's willing to, see where they've made a mistake or can be better,
Mhm.
that's a huge part of the process for me, is just having open communication with people, being straight up, with the people that I'm working with, and uh, that's pretty much how it's worked
Mhm.
out for me, at least.
Awesome. Okay. What's one of the strangest requests you've ever had?
With pain.
Yeah.
um Maybe somebody want a little more than painting.
You ain't talking about horse trading, are
Yeah.
you? Okay. Oh my goodness. You ran into that too? I think that's a rite of passage in the construction home service trade, right? My goodness. Maybe folks, we ain't going to dive into what exactly that means. Y'all
Yeah.
can look up what horse trading means, do a Google search or ask ChatGPT what that means.
Right.
Okay, so what is some of the I've had an experience I'm thinking about that where I was designing and building a home for a guy. It's been, I don't know, probably 8 years ago.
Mhm.
And I remember thinking I had screwed up, or we had screwed up when we got to the painting stage.
Mm. Mhm.
Um, we'd followed our process though, like documenting, having the paint swatch, having the owner sign off on the paint swatch. When we ordered the paint got to the job site, making sure that the paint swatch matched the actual paint that was delivered on the job site, verified it all matched up. So we did all that. And I'd already worked with this painting crew. They knew the process. They were sending the video updates and all that. And they started painting like one of the main rooms. And while visiting the job site, I walked in. There's a lot of natural lighting. Doors are open when you're painting. Power wasn't on. It was well lit. I walked in and I remember looking and I was like, "Oh my goodness!" I told the painter, "Stop, stop! What's wrong?" And then I had remembered, well, wait, no, we already verified the paint's color. I was like, this does not look like the swatch. Like in
Yeah.
my mind, I had a certain expectation,
Mhm.
but when I walked in the job, it looked totally different. In my mind, I already know like this is gonna be a problem.
Mm.
Just because if that happened to me, I'm imagining it's going to be that same way to the client. I said, stop, pump the brakes. Hey, take a lunch break. Right, took a lunch break. Okay, take another break. Don't let me get the owner out of here. So called up the owner. Hey, are you close by? Yeah, what's up? I can stop by. Hey, yeah, I'm stopping through here. I want to have a quick meeting with you. We hadn't talked. I hadn't met on site in a little while, and I'm here. If you're here, let's stop by and let's meet. My angle, my way of handling that was let's meet on site. We're going to walk the job together, and I'm going to gauge the reaction.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes you can create a problem
Without.
that's not really a problem
Right.
based on your perception.
Mhm.
And this guy was single. There, he didn't have a wife, so that was when I was weighing all the different situations that how it could unfold. So he came in, he walked in, and as soon as he walked in the same front door I walked in. But when he walked in, his reaction was totally different than
Mm.
mine.
Mm.
He walked in, he was like, "Man, that's what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
man. What you think, Ralph? You said you love this color. What you think? Like, what's your thoughts?"
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and I'm reading his body language. He's happy.
Mhm.
It met exactly what his expectation was.
Mhm.
So reading his expectation, but I couldn't hide it that well. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I said, brother, if you like it, I love it. He's like, well, that ain't, what, you don't like it?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I'm gonna shoot you straight. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
I was concerned. I was
Mhm.
like, but it seemed like you guys like, yeah, I love it, but why you don't like it?
Mhm.
And in my mind, it was he was a man. You know what I mean? He's alpha times maybe a
Yeah.
couple degrees. You know what I mean? And
Right.
so I'm thinking that the color that we were putting on the wall, to me, it was like pink.
Mm.
It's almost like a salmon color.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And on the swatch, it didn't look like that. And I'm like, oh my goodness, let me just make sure, this expectation right. But he walked in and he loved it.
Yeah.
And he asked me, well, why are you thinking that way? Because I mean, this to me, this looks great. I said, well, hey, if you like it, I love it.
Right.
He's like, but why? Why are you feeling like that? I said, to me, that looks pink. And so it just kind of raised the red flags like, that ain't pink.
Yeah.
That's salmon. You know what I mean? So it was all good, but it
Yeah.
just taught me a lesson in knowing that sometimes you just have to be careful
Mhm.
because one person's perception can be totally different from another. And that's that's the catch-22 in that trade, in
Yes.
the painting with lighting,
Mm-hmm.
with the natural lighting situation, what color luminous lights you've got,
Yes.
and gauging those expectations. One of the things I've found to be the hardest thing about what we do, especially in the custom home building niche, is that even when you're right sometimes, you're
Mm-hmm.
you're still wrong
Mm-hmm.
because you can have all those T's crossed and all those I's dotted
Mm-hmm.
and be able to prove it 10 different ways. But if you're driven by seeing people smile
Mm-hmm.
and happy with the work that you've done and you've done everything right,
Mm-hmm.
but there can be a misalignment like that and they're
Mm-hmm.
totally not happy with the work. Have you
Right.
ever ran into a situation like that?
Absolutely. Yeah. This is
So how did you handle it?
well, we so you each situation is different. Dealing with a person, of course, you want to make the customer happy, and you're willing to go above and beyond with the customer. Um, if everything was followed to procedure, and they pick, and that's what I try to do. I have the customers pick colors. Anytime they ask me for any recommendation, what colors are hot, what are good, I don't know. you know, let me bring you the color wheel and let's you decide it. And also another thing we can do is go get some samples, put them on the wall. So I really try as a part of the process to make sure that you're sure. But like you said, there's still circumstances where it goes up on the wall.
Mhm.
So I try to meet them halfway, hey, this is a situation that, we did do our due diligence. How can we meet each other here? Maybe there's, hey, for a reduced price, we can change the color for you. We can do something because at the end of the day, I want you to be happy. I
Have you
want you.
ran into situations to where you're in that situation
Hmm.
and you have your T's crossed, your I's dotted, and we're just not there with what the expectations are.
Hmm.
And that's the logical way of handling it, right? And I
Hmm.
agree, meaning
Hmm.
like, well, hey, you know, it's all in how you finesse that situation. But at the
Sure.
end of the day, if you just laying it flat on the table, hey,
Yeah.
here's what was selected. We did exactly what was approved. I understand
Hmm.
you don't like it. I'm with you. Don't mind changing it.
Hmm.
However, we got to do double work here,
Yeah.
and I'm willing to help out, but it's going to cost you an extra $1,000,
Right.
$2,000, and then I'm pretty sure if you've been in the business and with your dad, you've seen this to where the ideal situation is you've got a client that's understanding,
Sure.
and they're like, yes, but how rare is that?
Right.
And
Right.
that's the thing that trips me up about this industry
Hmm.
is that everybody, always sees the negative connotation that comes with construction and
Hmm.
contractors. And, in all honesty, rightfully so, as a whole, as an industry, I believe. But there
Sure.
are exceptions to every rule. And I find that these exceptions, if you are that exception, I know we're that exception,
Hmm.
and ever who falls into that category, you want to be nice, you want to be kind, you want to be helpful, but that's where that whole balancing act comes in,
Yes.
you know, pleasing people
Hmm.
or making a profit.
Right.
And
Right.
that whole balancing act gets tricky
Hmm.
because how often, what has your experience been when you're in that situation? What is the owner, what is the ownership saying to you at that point? Are they expecting you to repaint that wall at
Hmm.
no charge?
Hmm. Yeah.
Or are they like, what is your experience with that?
Yeah, it's been both. I've dealt with people where there was nothing that I could do, even if I went to change the color and I did, they still weren't happy. And so that's kind of a them thing at that point.
Mhm.
And
Let
like
me
you
ask
said,
you something on it and hold that thought.
sure.
Like, when you were in that situation, do you think with that experience that you've learned from,
Hmm.
did it equip you better to be able to pinpoint that characteristic in a
Absolutely.
person when you first meet with them?
Oh,
And
absolutely.
if so, what did you learn and what do you look for now to try to pinpoint that? Because a lot of
Hmm.
times we put on certain faces when we're meeting
Sure.
with people. What is your strategies to kind of figure out if that's going to happen if you're faced with that situation again?
So I do my very best, and I'm okay with the very best that I can offer. And so if it gets to, and if, pinpointing it, maybe I might turn the job down. Maybe I might, put be put in a situation where, hey, let me do what I asked you to do, but, as long as we fulfill both of our obligations, maybe it's best we move on, to another situation. Always respectful, never get nasty, in business. It's always about keeping, a cool, calm, level head, especially, when you got money involved and, people,
Mhm.
but
How hard has that been for you? I mean, with being in business, I mean, what has failure looked like for you in that sense?
failure in that sense it's always, to me, there isn't real failure. It's just lessons. There's
Mhm,
just lessons and opportunities to know how to handle
mhm,
situations better as they're coming up. So, again, the uh, situation for me, if I'm getting that kind of feel, maybe I'll just back away from the job, or during the process of, hey, this wouldn't be a good project for us,
mhm,
because of, and that's just the way of the game. If
mhm,
you got, not every customer is going to be really, perfect, and you're going to be able to deliver that and get the smile. But like you said, holding that balance where, hey, if I'm doing that every month or two, now I'm hurting the business. And in
mhm,
business, you don't have just you to think about. You've got your team, people have to get paychecks, people,
mhm,
bills got to be paid. The bills are, so that takes precedence, over always making the customer 100% happy no matter what. Chick-fil-A.
mhm, yeah. So, has there ever been a time, like, that you've thought about doing something completely different
As far as my interaction with, or in
with the
business.
business? Yeah.
Yeah, I've been very blessed to excel in whatever it is that I'm doing, whatever I put my mind to. I try to develop good processes. My time in the military, I worked with an engineering company, doing some design work with TRC out of Raleigh. So, I developed an inspection process and,
Mhm,
did really well. My thing has been commitment to one thing. And so right now, I am committed to this trade in particular and developing it and allowing it to become some, because all the things are set up for it at this point. But
mhm,
that doesn't mean that I'm not open to. I've actually thought about, you know, getting, because, and I'm actually learning right now, about the contracting process. Taking on larger projects, what that looks like, what type of certifications you need. What does that look like? A general contractor as like a painter,
mhm,
that didn't deal with specifically other trades, but
mhm,
that some of the places that I met you at and stuff like that. There's different opportunities with different companies that require what they call tier one contractors and
mhm.
stuff like that, but are just painting. You get a $300,000 or $400,000 contract that's just painting,
Right.
but you need certain things to
Credentials.
credentials to
Yeah.
be able to do that. So
Mhm,
that's kind of the process that I'm in now, is figuring out how to develop the business in that sort of way that we can take on larger projects and things of that nature.
What portion of the business gets you most excited or gives you your most thrills?
Um, being an owner operator, just being hands on, being out in the field, knowing that, I'm creating,
Mhm,
that, and I'm not just, I mean, I'm a part of a process, but I'm using my energy, my life to make a difference,
mhm.
in whatever it is I'm doing. I think that's probably the most exciting thing for me.
What's one of the biggest lessons you've learned from your dad?
Whew,
If you had to choose one,
if I had
like,
to choose
what
one,
yeah.
oh man. What goes around comes around. What goes up must come down.
Mhm,
That's Dad's. He's got a lot of sayings. He's been around. He's done a lot of things. Um, the most important lesson would be to never give up. Keep going. Whatever you face, this too will pass. That's kind of been seeing him bounce back from situations. Just always believing in himself and
mhm.
knowing that at the end of the day, there is no quit, there is no give up. So I think that's the greatest thing that I've taken from my dad. That, hey, we're gonna win over here some way somehow.
Is there a painting hack or tips of the trade that you think every painter should know?
A particular hack. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. There is, uh, we try not to cut no corners. And a hack doesn't mean cutting a corner. There is probably something um, that you know knowing how to use that spray gun. I mean, you're going to get so much more production when you can effectively use it, know what, settings to, apply certain pressures at, know what tips to use,
Mhm.
things of that nature. I'd say knowing that spray gun well is probably the best hack you can have.
Have you ever had to talk a client out of, say, like a unique color?
Um, I give people what they want.
Mhm.
Like you said, if you like it, I love it. So it's, I do, there are certain colors that are a bit more like certain sheens and things like that. If I'm going into a older home,
Mhm.
um, and their sheetrock looks like, it's
Yeah.
just they've had nail pops or whatever, a lot of imperfections. I tried to say, hey, maybe it might be in your interest to use a flat because
Mhm.
it won't show as many imperfections. But some people are like, I want semi gloss on the walls,
Mm.
like you're gonna see everything.
Yeah.
So that.
Now, have you ran in situations where you've done that and you've given the heads up and they still wanted to go against your suggestion,
Hmm.
and then in the end, when everything's all said and done, they're totally not happy with it,
Mm.
but then they want you to redo it, but you've already let them know up front.
Hmm.
Have
Hmm.
you ran into a situation like that?
Of course, yeah.
How do you handle that?
The same kind of situation where you make sure you fulfill your obligation. Hey, if you would like something different, you have to be firm in business too. You can't be a pushover out here
Mhm.
because there's plenty of
Well,
people.
I'm gonna role play with you real quick because that's interesting because this is one of the biggest things we face, not
Yeah,
just in paint, but the whole industry, right?
sure.
We've got a client. We've let them know.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So let's just say it's a remodel. We were doing a remodel,
Hmm.
and I had you handling it. And hey,
Hmm.
Derek, work with the client, da 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 da. And then we get a phone call. Client's not happy. What have you? We
Hmm.
meet. So owner tells me, well, I mean, look at it. Look at how that looks. And I'm like, yeah, Derek. But I imagine Derek's gonna say, well, hey, remember we talked about this up
Hmm.
front. We said that if you don't, da da da. Well, yeah, and the clients, I may have said it, but I'm not the
Yeah,
professional.
yeah,
I don't know.
I-
You know what I mean?
yeah,
You guys are the professionals,
yeah.
and if you knew that's how that was going to look, why did you talk me into doing it? Why did you
Hmm.
let me do that? Have
Hmm.
you ever heard any of those? Does that sound familiar, any at all?
Yeah, I mean it's about accountability at the end of the day. I'm going to hold myself accountable for what I said, and as a person, as a business owner, as a person who's dealing with business, you got to be accountable as well.
I'm gonna share with you this, and I know one of the things that I think is the best lesson that I've learned in business
Hmm.
is because everything's about perception. In that person's mind, they are right.
Hmm.
And people become really great experts at persuasion when you're faced with those type of situations.
Hmm.
And it's almost like instinct.
Hmm.
I've faced those situations and I find myself agreeing, even though it's against my own judgment. I
Right.
can't because I'm the type of person where I'm a realist.
Hmm.
And I'm like, you know what? We are the professionals.
Hmm.
We've been doing this 20 years. This person paid us for a service. And even though they said that they're going against what we're suggesting, number one, what is the outcome of this if we don't come to some type of agreement,
Right.
even if it means taking a loss?
Hmm.
They're going to
Hmm.
be upset with you, even though you're right.
Right.
They're still upset with you.
Of course.
So,
Yeah.
do you take a loss and lose money and don't make profit?
Hmm.
And if you keep doing that, what if you have a batch of that? You know what I mean? Five or 10
Hmm.
of them,
Hmm.
and you're not able to make payroll, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Those are the challenges that reason why so many of us fail in
Yeah.
business.
Right.
So what I've learned is that in a situation like that, where I'd have like Derek, ma'am, give us a moment, let us talk. Derek, did you? Yeah, but but you knew that. I mean, did you? I mean, honestly, you notice? Yeah, I knew. Here's what we're gonna do.
Hmm.
We're gonna redo this. We're gonna skim these walls.
Hmm.
Who's paying for that? I'm just saying how we do business.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
And
Right.
it's tough.
Yeah. Hmm.
Only through the grace of God that we've made it this
Yeah.
far and take the beatings that we've taken. But it's helped us learn so much.
Hmm.
And I'm gonna say, here's the way I want it to have happen.
Sure.
Let's split it
Hmm. Hmm.
because I think there's a valuable lesson here.
Hmm.
Here's what we're going to do moving forward
Hmm.
because our name is and our reputation is the most valuable thing that we're going to get.
Absolutely.
This is going to cost $1,000. You eat 500. I eat
Hmm.
500.
Hmm.
I want you to skim the walls,
Hmm.
sand it down. That way, when we're done, it's going to look exactly how we would want it to look,
Of course.
right?
Right. Hmm.
However, moving forward, here's what we're going to do. Anytime you're facing this situation and a client tells you,
Hmm.
you know what, well, hey, yeah, I don't have the money to pay for that. That's fine. It's going to be great. Don't ever move forward with that again
Hmm.
unless you pull out your phone
Hmm.
and you let that client know, okay, let me make sure I document this so my team and all of us are on the same page so
Yes.
there's no confusion later on.
Paper trail.
And so hey, I'm here with Mrs. Such and Such, and we're talking about this wall. Miss Such and Such, you're agreeing that we're deciding not to skim the walls. We're deciding not to do that because that would cost an extra $1,000, and of course, the money's not there to do it. So we're just going to do it, this way.
Hmm.
However, if we're going to do satin or eggshell, it's going to show all the flaws in the wall, and you're okay with that. Is
Hmm.
that correct?
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, what happens in that situation? You're still going to have the same outcome.
Yeah.
You're
Right.
still, if that's the type of job that you're on.
Hmm.
But what I've found through trial and error is that it eliminates the arguments. It's still
Hmm.
going to be an issue, but
Hmm.
however, we can gently remind, well, hey, remember when we started this, the reason why we documented this
Hmm.
is we did know this up front. We gave an option to that would have prevented this, but money was the issue. And well, I don't, are you sure? Yes, ma'am. Hold on one second. Yes, sir.
Hmm.
And what happens when you do that is that people won't argue with themselves.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
And they can't help but to respect the fact that now they view you a different way. You had the foresight, the expertise, the knowledge to document that.
Hmm.
Then you enter negotiations
Hmm.
or you learn to love it.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know, so for me, our whole experience in business has been that
Hmm.
through every single trade, from painting to drywall to brick mason to da da da. My struggle, our biggest struggle, has been finding teammates,
Hmm.
partners, subcontractors who are like minded, who are willing to do that. Because a lot of us ain't willing to do that. A
Hmm.
lot of us are just looking at that $500
Right.
and the fact that we're not willing to lose that $500, and we're willing to ruin relationships,
Hmm.
have clients, and it doesn't even matter who's right.
Mm-mm.
You know what I mean? You can try to win that battle all you want to, you're going to end up losing the war.
That's right.
And so we go through processes, learning them pretty much the hard way,
Hmm.
using them as valuable lessons. So where we find ourselves in at least that same situation moving forward. And my team will tell you, if I ask anyone that's worked with us, say, hey, if you was asking, when do you see him the most excited or the most happy or the most joyful what he did? It ain't going to be, what most of us would think was, oh, when you're making a lot of money or when you knock
Hmm.
out this home run and you make a really good amount of money on one job in a short amount of time. That's most of our goals in business to do that. I would guarantee you, my team would say, when you're going to see him the most excited and the most joyful when we've repeated a same process where we failed at it before, but
Hmm.
now we've mastered it.
Yeah.
Because
Hmm.
I realized that, if you keep doing that over and over and over, the money, the profit, all
Hmm.
that's going to come later.
Hmm.
And it sounds to me like that's kind of your father's mindset based on the little bit of information you've told me about your father.
Yes, sir.
You know?
Hmm. Yeah.
And so got some other questions I'm gonna ask, and Mark he'll edit all this up to kind of chop it up. But
Okay.
I'm gonna look through some of these notes to make sure I ask you some of these questions. So when you're not in the world of painting, what else are you into? What's like your hobbies? What do you like doing?
We're gonna go there.
Yeah.
Okay. So, my I, like I told you, these past 2 years, I had a deep, huh, realization, journey. I always wanted to know what God is
Mm.
and what that means. I kind of grew up in um, how it is in Robinson County, the holies of holies out there.
Oh yeah.
So and I got to experience some things that I guess what would be normally like woo woo or out of here, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and so when I started experiencing these things, I kind of started having, I guess, encounters with other things, other situations and circumstances, and then I just started following that path. I just started listening to my intuition, listening to my gut, and so as I went down that path, I got an opportunity to sit with some earth medicines and going a holistic approach to some of the things that we deal with in our human experience as far as trauma and depression, anxiety, and things like that. So I took a real deep dive into like psychology, how the subconscious, the mind works, and all those different things. And on top of that, with spirituality or religion or whatever that circumstance or scenario is. And so as I started going down that journey, just an entire different world opened up for me. And so I live a pretty incredible, like supernatural kind of life outside of regular. And what's crazy is the deep spiritual things that I was searching for was all in my what I'm doing right now in the regular, everyday, day to day, the deep lessons that I needed to see, regarding um, mother and father and all those different things, all the I guess broken pieces that I navigated through
Mm-hmm.
during my childhood and wondering why this and why that. Everything starts with a question, and
Mm-hmm.
so I've always been a very inquisitive person and would ask questions that nobody else would ask, or if they were asked, they'd get,
Mm-hmm.
don't ask that question,
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't have an answer for it.
Right.
So as I would start to, ask these questions, the answers would present themselves to me, and so um, I do like some healing stuff with people using frequency, sound, the power of sound and energy and things like that. And, got to meet some amazing people around the world that are really deep into those things. And they really have taught me, some stuff. And a lot of it, there's no process in that. And what's so funny is because I'm uh, a process oriented type of person, that completely is shifted me to be in the space of the unknown and being willing to or having to surrender to like the flow of life and like
Mm-hmm.
everything can't be so
Structure.
concrete and structured. And
It's
so
fluidity.
exactly.
So one of the things I say often is pivoting.
Mm,
I've went on a journey in this business and through the emotions of I've been doing it 20 years.
mm-hmm,
With the family life, husband, wife's here, husband, wife, children in the business, and
mm-hmm,
you got all the ups and downs that come with managing people's emotions. And I tell people, I never knew. I'm glad I didn't know because I probably would have changed my mind if I knew exactly what I
mm,
was getting into.
mm-hmm,
But I think God, He knows me inside and out. And He knows that once I've committed to something,
mm-hmm.
that's it. I mean, like there ain't no going back. I'm committed. I said yes. I'm doing it.
Right.
But I never knew I had to become a psychologist.
Mm,
I never knew I had to become a great communicator. I
mm-hmm,
never knew, besides all the stuff you got to do well to be successful in this game, in the construction business, the estimating, the accounting, and all.
yes.
There's probably 40 different hats
Mm-hmm,
that I've had to become better than average at in order to have a chance of success. And even that becomes a blessing and a curse.
mm-hmm,
Because as you grow and you go through certain glass ceilings, I know how to do things that most people, most builders in my position won't know how to do. And that becomes my crutch. But now in certain stages, it becomes something that starts to hinder you because you know how to do that.
yeah. Right.
And instead of taking the time to teach someone or mentor someone or coach someone through that, and that's a flaw of mine,
Yeah.
is where, and I caught myself, I do it quite often still,
Mm-hmm,
is where I know how to do a thing. Instead of me trying to teach you and train you in my mind, it's like I've already gotten past this 10 years ago,
mm-hmm,
right? And then it's the time between then and now, technology's changed.
mm-hmm.
And when I used to could be real fluid and can do that super fast in my mind, I can still do that. But now technology's changed.
You're
And,
right.
and so now I'm having to start over. Now I catch myself getting frustrated. But it's such a blessing, and it's a frame of mind.
Mm-hmm,
And what I did recently is that, I had to catch myself in those moments
mm-hmm,
and reframe how I think about it,
mm-hmm.
my perception on it, and just be like, this is a blessing. Like, I
Yes.
mean, my natural reaction is this way, but I got to understand why
Mm-hmm,
I'm reacting that way
mm-hmm.
and process that and then reframe it.
That's it.
It's like, well, hey, I get the opportunity. First off, what is your goal? Like, what are you do? Number one, for me, it's, of course, achieving what I feel like I'm capable of. I'm
Mm-hmm.
competing. I'm competing against me,
That's it.
what the best version of me is like.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm also interacting with different team members, different folks, they've got their journey. I got a responsibility to them to help
Mm-hmm.
get them from point A to point Z. And so while I'm going through that, I'm like, no, man, this is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
I get to take Mark, I get to take with my daughter, Brianna, or with this new painting contractor, who's got a bright future, you know, learn to have more patience. You've got a skill set, you've got ability, you can teach. And don't forget, at the end of the day, guess what is going to be the most valuable thing that you look back on and cherish when
Mm-hmm.
it's all said and done?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of have this will be a regret if I handle it this way, if I
Mm-hmm.
get frustrated, if I get angry, and plus the person that it ain't towards them. It's really kind of internally,
Mm-hmm.
but it's going to feel like it's towards them because
Mm-hmm.
I'm supposedly trying to guide them through that,
Right.
and that's been that's a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real struggle, but it's a mandatory struggle to grow a company
That's it.
that
Yep.
can run with you, of course at first, but then also getting to a point to where it can run without you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's been one of the biggest lessons that I've learned recently. And, you would think that being in the business 20 years, I used to think that, man, by the time I'm done this 10 years, I'm going to have it mastered.
Yeah.
Man, and like, listen, every day in this business is something. And I guess that's what I love about it. There's
Mm-hmm.
no day that's the same. They got
Mm-hmm.
a lot of fluidity to it, but it's the freedom that I
Right.
enjoy. And I want to ask you about that
Mm-hmm.
is I think that's a common theme, but if what would you say is the one thing that you enjoy the most about what you're doing?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely the freedom. Definitely the ability to not um like not be stuck. I feel like working. Not that. I mean, you got to always, in order to get to this place, you have to know how to be an Indian. You gotta know how to work for someone, and you're always working for someone to on one degree or another. I mean, even as a business owner, you're working for your general contractor, you're working for that homeowner, you're working for, so it, it's um it's definitely the takeaway. The beauty of this is, and then also knowing that I'm creating something for the future. Like I'm implementing and establishing things that will at least afford opportunities, not only for my kids, but whoever else wants to, come and be on a similar path as well. Kind of had this vision like in 2018 of, and this was before I knew anything about any trades or anything, but I was going through some difficult things, and then it was just like boom, like I got flooded with all these ideas, about the future, about how we could provide alternative ways to systems that are in place currently, and that we shouldn't necessarily do away with all the old systems of traditional schools and things like that. But like I know I've heard of like trade schools and things like that, but really teaching people some very applicable, real things that they can use that aren't just putting you as a part of a system or you paying a tuition. Because and I see the value in all of it, because it's all about discipline, and you go through that process in order to go through another process.
Kind of what you're saying reminds me of something I heard when I got my associate's degree. And, when you're doing that, you're thinking, you got a certain mindset. However, one of the older guys, when I got the job that I was ultimately after at the time, I got my associate's degree in industrial systems, and then I wanted to, become an electrician, program PLCs, automate the machinery in the manufacturing plants, and I did all of that. And as soon as I got the job and when I knew I could do it, you get that sense of achievement, and
Mm-hmm.
oh, I knew I could do it. And my supervisor said something to me, and it's never left me. Was talking about college and earning an associate's degree. He said, well, really, at the end of the day, the only real purpose of going to get an associate's degree or going to school is to prove that you're able to sit down, listen, and learn.
That's it.
Because as I got that job, I still had to get the on the job training.
Mm-hmm.
I only had theory, wasn't no practice, no practical application, and all that. And so,
Mm-hmm.
I think you're 100% right about that. I want to ask you too.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about working with general contractors and stuff. If you could snap your fingers and solve your biggest problems or biggest frustrations that you have with contractors,
Mm-hmm.
clients, whoever they may be, what would be the three top problems that you would resolve?
The top problems as far as people that, like you're saying, like that I'm working
Yeah,
for
you're
or
working
working
for a
with.
general
Yeah.
contractor, a homeowner, or whoever your quote unquote boss or client or whatever label you would want to put on that. What are the three biggest struggles you face or you saw your father face?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like what are those struggles?
people wanting things for free. Like I, I think that's a normal thing. And let me clarify that a little bit.
Mhm.
So there's, when you develop relationships with, customers, with contractors and things like that, it's like there's a level of, I think, well, hey, I've been working for you for a while, and you've made money and things like that, which is very understandable, and it's give and take.
Yeah.
That aspect of the relationship is like, hey, yeah, I did make some on this, but then you run into a few contractors where it's like every time I come to work for you, I'm losing a bit here and I'm losing a bit there. Overall, I'm making money, but if you know that, I expect I expect the people that I'm working with for them to make the money that they earn.
Mhm.
It's not like we're asking you for anything for free. We're delivering a service for you, and
Mhm.
because we're delivering that service, we expect to be compensated for it. And so having that clarity probably between contractors, and people that, well, that's something I saw dad. Dad's always, hey, just do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. And that is, a good thing, and why he does have good relationships, long lasting relationships. He's got people he's worked for 15
Well,
years.
see, now that you mentioned that, I can see that from that perspective too. And one of the things that we will have conversations. A lot of trades now, sub trades, they don't either understand or they don't take the time to try to understand the value of a lifetime relationship
Right.
in the sense of business. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and there's an exercise I did. I put a video out. Maybe we need to do another one on it, Mark. Maybe an updated version of it. But there's a calculation. We'll kind of go through it real quick so the folks can kind of see what that looks like. So
Mm-hmm.
and you can just answer the questions, fictional numbers. It doesn't matter.
Sure.
So use Southeastern for an example.
Mm-hmm.
You're in the painting business, right? An average job, say you're profiting. What would you say average job?
Um, Between 1,000, maybe 1,000, 2,000, something like
So
that.
we'll say 1,500, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're profiting 1,500. Out of that, but there's going to be some jobs where commercial jobs, government jobs,
Mm-hmm.
so there's a mixture. So if you're
Sure.
profiting $1,500, and we're going to use that for a residential job,
Sure.
but then you've got a commercial job where you might land 20 townhomes with us,
Mm-hmm.
and they're back to back to back. You can roll out. You ain't got to do all this traveling. You're right there. Your
Yes.
productivity goes up. So when you land a relationship with a builder
Mm-hmm.
who, you know, that's what they do. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like working with a homeowner.
Right.
That's the one off.
Yes.
So I think a lot of times, and I find I have to sit down and have these conversations with trades when negotiating.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times you might be like, well, man, I need to be at 20 grand on this job.
Mm-hmm.
I got a number, I need to be at 15.
Right.
And if, depending on how we handle that, typically we just don't meet in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Your perception's one way, my perception's another. We're kind of both losing out because we spent the time trying to negotiate and it come to an agreement.
Mm-hmm.
So what I've learned that I'll tell people, and same thing as I explained earlier, take the time to teach these folks.
Mm-hmm.
They're not seeing it in this sense.
That's right.
So I would say, hey, I need you to look at it like this. We got 20 units here.
Mm-hmm.
You're wanting to be at 20 grand. I need you to be at 15
Mm-hmm.
per unit, whatever the number is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm losing. First thing you think about is what?
Mm-hmm.
I'm losing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm losing $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
5,000. And I can say, well, hey, let me ask you something. And this what kind of stumps me up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
How many people do you have working with you, Derrick? Derrick's going to say 3 people,
Mm-hmm.
4 people. How much are you paying your people, Derrick? Well, I'm paying them $25 an hour. I'm paying them $20. I'm paying them $30 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. All right, what is your overhead looking like? If they know it or not, help them, guiding them through that.
Yeah.
Right. So your overhead typically per week is around, let's just hypothetically say 5 grand,
Mm-hmm.
4 grand, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So what I've learned to do is to help navigate the trades through this,
Yes.
to get
That's so
them to
good.
understand it from a more of a business sense and say, well, hold on, before we make a mistake and you're looking at a project that you think that you're losing money. Number one, there's a lifetime value calculation I want to run you through and show you
Yeah.
exactly what you're potentially looking at the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm trying to get you at 15,000 versus the 20,000.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're looking at it from a one-off stance.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's technically a loss if you look at it that way. However, there's 20 units here. There's another 90 that's coming.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if We need to work together. We need to make sure that we're a good fit for one another. And I need to make sure that I'm getting out of the deal what I need to get out of it. You
That's
need to
right.
make sure you're getting the deal. So let me ask you this. Are you more prone to here now, or are you more prone to building a lifetime relationship value? Most
Mhm.
people, as long as they're not taking a loss to where they just like, well, this don't even make sense no matter what the future holds.
Right. Right.
And there's people that will try to take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm.
What we try to do is we try to say, hey, and be completely transparent, because the thing that I've learned is that it's relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing without saying it blatantly is I'm helping you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm helping
Mm-hmm.
myself, of
Of
course.
course. Right.
You know what I mean? That's a given, but I'm also helping you say, well, hey, you know, yes, I need to be at $15,000,
Mm-hmm.
but there's 90 other units,
That's right.
and we've got government work. And if
Mm-hmm.
you follow our processes and you do this, and
Mm-hmm.
the benefit of that is that I don't have to use so much of my resources. I don't have to follow up and behind you like I do with some of these other trades. I can count on you guys and your team to follow the process, to send us documentation when you're doing your checklist, proving you're doing it. So that way it enables me and my team to where if we have to ever get challenged, we can not just say it, but we can prove it. But
Right.
once you start working that way, once you learn our system, you're going to become more effective. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to take the same system and you're going to replicate it and do it with every builder if you're smart, or every client, which is going to save you from having to take losses.
Mm-hmm.
How many losses have you took this year?
A few. Yeah.
If you had to guess, what dollar amount would you associate the losses with?
Whew. Well, that's a whole because we're revamping and resetting up the print.
10,000,
Ooh,
5,000, 100,000.
probably 100,000. Yeah.
So let's just say 50 to be conservative,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I do is say, now what if you didn't take those losses? That's
Mm-hmm.
$50,000, $100,000 more,
Mm-hmm.
and that's net profit.
Yeah.
When you're
Right.
talking those numbers, that's straight to your bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
So I tend to like use those kind of tactics.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're looking for is to build a relationship to where you, in your case, you're the owner or going to be the owner.
Mm-hmm.
You see that.
Mm-hmm.
So what that does is you're much more willing now to listen,
Mm-hmm.
to say, well, hey, let me actually give these folks a try and see what they're talking about, because
Right.
now that $5,000 that you were thinking that you were going into readying,
Yes.
if and all I have to do is make it make sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if I can show you, number one, how to do a better job. Number one, I want my prices to stay where they at, because I'm
Mm-hmm.
investing a lot of time and energy to get you from point A to point Z. But you're able to take these techniques, and when you go sell it to a homeowner, when you go sell it to these other folks, you're able to get a premium. And plus, when people find out, well, hey, you're doing Southeastern's work, and I know how they are, da
Mm-hmm.
da da. So if you're working with them, and I know the process they follow, then you've got to be, in tip top shape.
Right.
Well, you're making more profit
Mm-hmm.
on other jobs. You're making profit on ours, but what it does, it allows us to control our cost and up our quality,
Mm-hmm.
but then show you multiple other avenues on how you can increase profits.
Mm-hmm.
But then now we've got government work, we've got residential work, we've got commercial work, and
Mm-hmm.
now it's like, yes, we're saving that $5,000 here, but watch this. Your overhead's $5,000 a week, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to turn this job wide out in 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So you turn it out in 2 weeks. That's $10,000,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And if this job's paying 15, well, you're doing two of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's $30,000. You're still profiting $15,000 after your overhead,
Right. Right.
and that's normally when the light bulb goes off.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, it amazed me, because I used to go into situations, think that we all knew how to do that lifetime value, that calculation
Mm-hmm.
of. Now, every time you see it from that light, it's like, oh yeah, now you would feel dumb to walk away from
Yeah,
that,
that's right. Yeah.
because you didn't think about it from that standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
But we try to do things like that with each subtrade, but everybody's not receptive to that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so the ones that we do build those type of relationships with, they tend to last for a good while.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a few that last more than 5 years. You know, so when you scale that out across 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, when you
Mm-hmm.
have those kind of relationships, you're talking about multi-millions of dollars
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
over that time period.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're looking to build. And one of the things I've found that for us to do that, we just can't just hire people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And just send them to a job site and not have, somewhat of these kind of meetings.
Yeah.
Because when you're in a job site, you're in a totally different mindset. There's problems,
Mm-hmm.
challenges, and good luck trying to have these conversations when you're worried
Yeah.
about making payroll this week and
Right.
and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's excellent. I mean, that's a very forward thinking. It takes a lot of mind power, in my opinion, to consider all of those things, as far as being a type of company that would, offer those kind of things. I mean, and I think that's the way. I mean, anything that comes fast, quick, it usually leaves fast and quick. And if we're talking about longevity, talking about creating a legacy, creating, something for the future, those are the necessary steps and processes that, ensure that reality to be made manifest. So, I think that's an amazing thing, to be open and willing and to help. I mean, that's truly helping. Like you said, I'm going to help you, and that's how you really help somebody. That's the difference in just giving somebody a job real quick to let them make money versus, hey, let me solidify this as a business. And that's how all this works. Everybody, or from what I'm seeing at least in this sort of business, it is one big business, but I guess maybe for tax purposes, whatever the case may be, everybody has their own business within the business. And, it just, to me, it makes total sense. I mean, that's the way to go for sure.
Okay. I want to run a sample scenario by and see how this is future pacing. We're working together,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we're doing a job. Let's say we missed the mark,
Mm-hmm.
totally missed the mark.
Mm-hmm.
My guys are out walking the job site. You know how we do WhatsApp or Messenger or whatnot, documenting. And I'm gonna just role play a scenario out. I'm looking through, and teams are bringing me up to speed. Your crews went out to a job site, painting, say a commercial building.
Mm-hmm.
Residential typically isn't expected to be as critical as custom homes with the details and all that.
Mm-hmm.
However, we got a problem,
Mm-hmm.
and my team normally don't pull me in the middle of it unless they're having problems getting the result that we need. So
Mm-hmm.
my team calls me, hey, we're trying to get in touch with such and such, not answering. We got a problem. What's the problem?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've got our finished carpeting in, commercial grade carpeting in, and the painters that are on the job site is dropping. They got paint drops in the carpet. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and they were sending us their video updates, and in the video update, they were showing where they didn't have the drop cloths down, didn't do the basics.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But now we've got, commercial grade carpet in a, multi-million-dollar commercial project,
Mm-hmm.
and we go out there and the paint's dried, it's kind of soaked through.
Mm.
It says 8 to 10,000 square foot,
Oh wow. Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And how would you handle that?
Well, accountability. If there was something that was our part and it's something that we did, do everything in our power to rectify, even if it means losing money, if it means, not making a profit on this project. That's just the way the chips fell. And then, of course, implement processes moving forward. If I'm on the job, me personally, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're running a business and you're delegating and things like that, you can't always 100% control what everybody else is going to do. You can set your standards, but things happen. So it'd be to fix the issue, whatever way that we needed to fix it, fix what needed to be fixed, and ensure that we put things in place to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Let's say we go through that and we got to try to get first course of action is probably getting like a Stanley Steamers,
Mm-hmm.
crossing our fingers, hoping that it comes up. It doesn't come up.
Mm-hmm.
By this time, the request has been made to replace it.
Mm-hmm.
That request end up essentially being to the tune of 50 grand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I guess that in that scenario, we have insurance. Unfortunately, we might have to go we never want to, mess with. You never want to go down that road. But
Yeah.
in a circumstance, there has been situations where I know Dad has been through situations like that where he actually took on doing an additional trade for a project, and then it ended up not going the way he thought it was going to go. So that was actually the number that he ended up having to fork out in order
Ooh,
to
50 grand.
50 grand in order
Jesus.
to make it right. And that's what he did, to make sure that everything was the way it was supposed to be. So, you know, in that scenario, you know, you got to just take accountability for what's going on. Obviously that's not a good day.
No, that's definitely
but
not a good day.
you got to do what you got to do. You got to do the right thing at the end of the day. You know,
So, looking ahead, how does the future look to you?
bright, shiny, um, exciting. You know, I think uh, I've done enough work on myself at this point to where, you know, I've done a lot of watering, so it's time to be in the garden now.
Mhm.
You know, and just enjoy this process that's happening in life. Just looking at the opportunities that are coming, and you know, not missing the moment, and you know, being diligent and persistent, not trying to force anything, of course. You know, because then you end up going backwards. It seems like. But just being open to flow, and you know, doing what I can, taking necessary action when I need to, um, and you know, start of the year, as far as from a paperwork standpoint, you know, will be
So, you making a change over this upcoming year?
in January, right after
Like,
taxes.
so, tell me about the business, like your business structure. Who all is the business?
So it's just been dad, and we had an office manager who's still, you know, currently involved in things like that, and you know, could be in the future. She moved to Wilmington and stuff like that, so you know, from she can do things from the computer and stuff. But we're really trying to be more hands on with whatever we're doing. People that can go out. So you know, we've got some people that were working with us, and they made some transitions towards the end of this year. So I'm right now working with, you know, a few teams that you know, have got a lot of knowledge in. And for me, and the part of the process, like I said, that I'm at is, you know, I have a good amount of knowledge on the job, but I'm always open to learn from the people I'm working with. You know, it's never like, obviously, uh, I was in the military, so you know, the whole hierarchy in the military. Oh, you know, I'm an officer, or I'm enlisted, and just the dynamic, you know, is kind of, you know, of course you have to respect people who are in certain positions, but I really take a, you know, uh, I guess, you know, like, come from a place of humility when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to the job and people I'm working with and things like that. So, hey, you can teach me something right now. I can learn something from the little dog that's running around here. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like, I just keep myself in that posture. So, yeah, that's kind of who's involved right now. And you know, I'm really, I'm not scared of hard work. So I've been working 7 days a week for the past month. So, you know, really just putting in the necessary foundation to, you know, make sure we're stable, secure, and you know, I'm ready for whatever else is coming.
Which would you prefer if you know, if you could just like make a choice? Which would you prefer working residential, commercial, or government work?
Well, government work is nice because that's security.
Mm-hmm.
You know, commercial, you know, it's I like it. I couldn't tell you just one because I enjoy doing all of it, and it has its own perks and
Mm-hmm.
you know things. But you know, having that consistent money, knowing okay, all if I know that X amount of dollars are coming in, as long as I produce this quality of service and I
Mm-hmm.
can deliver,
Mm-hmm.
that is so nice. I think that's what we all want to some degree or another, is that security. You know, the opportunity in commercial to make, you know, a large amount of money, especially in painting, is really nice. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the backside of that is how long, as a smaller company, you know, how long you got to wait
To get paid.
to get paid and things
Yeah.
like that. So the residential stuff, you actually can make really good money in that as well because it's quick turnaround. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's the moment you finish up, you get paid. And
Do you prefer repaints over new construction?
yeah, I would say so, just because of the prep work and things like that. You know, there's a lot less that goes into a repaint, and the numbers aren't far off. So, you know,
Let me ask you this question. I'm
sure.
sorry, my mind's
Yeah, yeah,
I'm asking, it's starting to fire away at me.
yeah.
Which would, which, if money wasn't an issue,
Mm-hmm.
which gives you the most satisfaction? The
Mm-hmm.
walking into a new construction home
Mm-hmm.
that you've got to do all this extra work for,
Mm-hmm.
blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, money's not an issue,
Mm-hmm.
and you walk into that home and getting to see a homeowner's overwhelming joy in seeing your work with looking like it was made in a manufacturing
Mm-hmm.
environment,
Mm-hmm.
and knowing that you are at the top of what you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Or would you rather go into the repaint industry,
Mhm.
say maybe with a franchise brand or whatever,
Mhm.
to where you're able to turn, got a mean, efficient machine,
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Where you get a lot of that still
Mhm.
with the homeowners being happy, but you still got the stragglers that's not, but you're turning 10 or 15 or 20 of those.
Mhm. Mhm.
Money's already not a problem,
Right.
but those are your two outcomes. Which would you choose? But you could only choose one.
The definitely the new construction. I think that definitely is just the process. Falling in love with the way that everything unfolds, seeing their faces and all that stuff. Yeah, I mean that's definitely the one. And then really knowing the job well. Like being able, like, because it doesn't take very much a skill, I would say, in repaints and things like that. But doing new construction, there's a level of expertise definitely that is being displayed when you're doing your work. So definitely the new construction.
That's one of the challenges that I face is it's a similar thing when you're looking at different industries, residential, custom homes, or commercial work, or even government work.
Hmm.
And I tell people I absolutely love the custom homes, and there's times where I've hated it. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? But there's no better teacher.
Mm.
And I tell people I don't believe there's any other industry outside of maybe brain surgery
Hmm.
that is complicated to master because there's so many moving parts.
Right.
And but once you do it and you do it well and you do it better than majority of the people that are out there doing it, a level of satisfaction you get,
Hmm.
you really can't beat that.
Hmm.
And even when you go do the commercial work or the government work, it doesn't require all the tedious attention to detail and
Hmm.
meticulous, you know, um, all the other stuff you got to do to get that. And you can make 10 times the amount of money.
Hmm.
It's still hard to give that up.
Mm.
And I think, for me, it's the same thing.
Hmm.
Is that it's easier. And
Hmm.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for
Yeah.
being wired that way to where you would prefer to do the harder stuff.
Yeah. Right.
That might be a toxic characteristic
Yeah.
or something. I don't know. But I relate to that. So,
Yeah.
for me, it's like, okay, how can we accomplish that, but not lose the thing that brought us to the dance?
Yes.
That passion for becoming great and being
Hmm.
great and learning how to do the things that everybody says that can't be done and telling you might as well accept that that's just the way that it is. Because I
Hmm.
know for me, I would, why?
Hmm.
So what is the why then?
Hmm.
If everybody can do what you're telling me, what's the point?
Hmm.
So then that becomes the balance. How do you balance that? Because at the end of the day, we are in business to make
That's it.
money.
That's it. Yeah.
So I think that's always going to be something that we're going to have to struggle with. And I want to ask you, kind of wrapping up on our time. What are some of the questions that you I want to give you the opportunity to ask? What questions that you've had or what's been on your mind? Because I know we've been talking for a while,
Hmm. Hmm.
or from your perspective, some of the questions you would like to have answered, from a GC side, facing,
Hmm.
on the subcontracting side. What questions do you have?
Um, I each, I guess, as a contractor, uh, I spoke a little bit about it earlier. You know, from a certification standpoint, what are some of the things that you know uh, we can all look good in a situation. When I guess I don't know exactly how the larger contracts works. That's actually what I want to go to school for and get some information about. What all is entailed in that.
When you
Because
say larger contracts, more specifically, what are you
like
referring?
Metcon, they're going to be doing the FSU building and things like that. Like I've been talking with some of their um, and to be a tier one, say, contractor, like they're obviously a larger
Mm-hmm.
company, and then they use general contractors. They
Mm-hmm.
use different contractors for different trades. So
Mm-hmm.
you know how would that look like partnering up with, like, say, what if I were to partner up with a GC, and like in this process, I'm always I always want to learn.
Mm-hmm.
I've fallen in love with learning,
Mm-hmm.
like, and figuring out how. I love to see how things work. And then I like to put my own perspective on what's happening, and I don't think I'm always right. I'm definitely not that, but I find a way to always like better systems, in my opinion. And so yeah, so I guess I don't know what my question is really, but maybe it's just a statement,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of my interest is to learn the game.
Hmm.
I like learning the game and learning how things work and seeing. I like seeing the behind the scenes. And and then on top of not only knowing that, it's also, like I said, I want to become a very proficient in what I'm doing. So I don't just want to have one aspect. I kind of, I want to be really good at the very thing that I'm doing. And then as I grow, from that space, what else, what other opportunities are there to create more and do more?
So future pacing, if you've mastered, you know, mastered the painting business or
Hmm.
whatnot, what's next? What I mean, because clearly you're growth oriented.
Yeah.
So what is the next step?
I don't know. I guess that's the unknown part where, I have to be okay with being good right where I'm at and
Hmm.
being here and being now. And so whatever opens up when that time comes, and I think I'll feel it, I'll be like, "Oh, this is the next part of the journey, or this is where I'm going."
Hmm.
Like I said, I don't know if I don't know exactly how things are going to play out. Obviously, I don't think we're supposed to. I think we have an idea, we set an intention, and then we let life, kind of guide us through whatever's going to happen, so that we can learn and see what we
Hmm.
need to see in the midst of it.
Have you ever thought about the crews, the folks you got doing the painting now? Are they employee based or is it subcontractor
Yeah,
based?
it's 1099. That's the technical way to do things. But yeah, I mean, but they work regular hours and things like that. So that's a dance too, figuring out what people really want. Some people, they prefer just the consistency, of having that 40 hour. Don't want to deal with being a contractor, what that entails. The paperwork side of that. Um, so yeah, that's kind of how it is now. It's it's in house, but from a standpoint
Hmm.
place. It's, contractors.
If there was something you wanted to learn from me or from our team, what would be some of the things you'd want to
Um, I definitely would love to learn how you guys have implemented the processes that you have, like the level of professionalism that you guys walk in, and, just your excellence. Like, I mean, there's so many good things to learn from you guys,
appreciate that?
being connected with you. I think there'd be, so many opportunities. So, it's hard to pinpoint just one thing. You guys got a lot of good qualities.
Thank you. Oh, I will tell you something to just a bone to gnaw on.
Yeah.
If you can figure out how to combine the drywall
Mm-hmm.
and the painting
Mm-hmm.
and build a crew out for that
Mm-hmm.
while you're getting this mastery of painting,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of a lot of people's tried it and they
Been
haven't
able
been
to
able to
do
do
it.
it.
Yeah.
So, if you're the type of person who's driven by a task where somebody's
Mm-hmm.
saying you can forget about it,
You're
it
right.
ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, yeah.
There's one for you. That's a
And
big
I
one
think
for
that,
you.
yeah, that's a big, big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's definitely been. I think it's just the money difference, when it comes down to it,
Hmm.
because the investment that it takes to put that up, and then the level of quality and all that stuff,
Hmm.
and then what you can do in painting, it just makes more sense to do just
Hmm.
painting, because what you would make in painting and the time investment that you would have for sheetrock, it doesn't add up. But maybe there is a way,
Hmm.
and I'm not. It's not like I'm, and find this right situation, right scenario. Hey, I got some drywallers, and this is what they love. They're passionate about it. This is, you guys want to work with CNC, like let's form, you know
Hmm.
an alliance here and figure that out. Maybe a company that, hey, they're, don't want to deal with the company side of things. Everything's about, I'm learning, once you master it, then it's all about delegating.
Yeah.
So like you really got to put the right people, right circle, just like everything you guys are doing. It'd be like a miniature version of that,
Hmm.
just putting that. But it's such a. I know there are companies that do it, but usually one is lacking.
Yeah.
Like either they're great drywallers, but then when it comes to that paint, not so much. And I think it's the same kind of concept as like a GC, like being a GC. Like if you could have everything in house, then you would. But that's kind of the thing. Like you got to find people who are specific, and they're not far apart. Obviously,
Hmm.
drywalling and painting. I mean, it goes hand in hand, but it's still a different trade, and it requires different things and stuff like that. So it's just when I have done it, it just because it made sense, and maybe there was stuff slowed down or something like that, and we needed to kind of fill some space. But as far as from a numbers standpoint and the effort and energy that goes into it, is just like not something that I could foresee, but not that I'm not open to experimenting with, trying out. Thing is, to like when I was running my small construction business when I got out of the military, I was doing I started working with an interior designer out of Raleigh called Lavish, and she does a lot of custom nice stuff. And I got some vets that I was working with, that were just really good with tile work, carpentry. I mean, some Puerto Rican guys that were just, oh my goodness, they just really cared about the quality. They really just enjoyed what they did, and we had an amazing turnout. But then I started noticing, you know, uh, over time, things happen, things shift and stuff like that. And then because I didn't have the trade mastered, then my reputation, the name of the business didn't, hold up for a very long time. I mean, I made money and stuff like that, but now I wasn't able to fulfill certain obligations. So that's another thing too, biting off more than you can chew. You like to do this and it sounds good, but when it comes to real application, and then can I go out there and do it myself?
Yeah.
So that's kind of and I'm, sheetrock. I don't feel like it's not something that I couldn't learn, but it's definitely, that's a trade too, and as far as getting your measurements, knowing how to put that mud on there the right way, taping and all that, So,
Well, it's good to know your limitations too, and so it's just I think from an individual basis, an individual has to know themselves. Like for me,
mm-hmm,
I know that I got a 20-year track record to where it's like I know I'm the type of person to where if I jump in,
mm-hmm,
I'm going to learn how to swim.
mm-hmm.
It don't matter what it is,
Right.
and give me a little bit of time. You know, give me a week, give me a
Mm-hmm.
month, come back. You look like I've been a marathon swimmer.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so
I
but
relate to that
everybody's
for sure.
everybody can't do that, and then
Mm-hmm,
again too, it goes back to now that becomes your blessing and a curse because the fact that you can do that
mm-hmm,
now it just becomes a weakness eventually.
mm-hmm,
So, but that would be a godsend in all honesty if we
yeah.
had a crew that with the projects that we're doing with the drywall because everything else, if I'd say that's one of the areas that we're weaker in, and it's only because of when we invest and we get those two trades to where they're at.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We're not going to always be able to come to the table and spend this kind of time and talk and stay in relationship and
Sure.
all of that. And then life happens, work happens, and you get other opportunities and stuff like that. Next thing you know, that relationship goes to lacking.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you find yourself having to kind of start all over with the new relationship just because of
Right.
the fact that now that they've been offered 300 homes in this development.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right.
And they don't need to do all of that.
Yeah.
But what I'm finding, and I think everybody's seeing it right now, that there are cycles,
Mm-hmm.
feast and famine.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the folks that was just recently up here,
Mm-hmm.
that all of a sudden, you know, and it's a humbling experience,
Of
and we
course.
all
Yeah.
should be humbled at times when we start to get an ego. And I feel like we're in a cycle where that's starting to happen.
Mm-hmm.
In all honesty, I think it's needed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For all of us.
Mm-hmm.
There have been times where we
Wake
work's
up
just been
call.
plentiful.
Yeah.
You know, but if there's anyone out there that's got that figured out, feel free to reach out to us.
Yeah.
So that drywall and that painting together is a beast to master.
Well,
So
like you were saying, is one of the most important things because that's what the customers or whoever that they're
we're
looking at.
judged based on that.
That's everything. Yeah, for
Like we
sure.
can do all this tedious stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and if we don't get those two right, our whole performance is judged based on those two traits.
Yeah. Yeah. And I could imagine from your standpoint, that would be obviously ideal. Like to, and not even just from, obviously it has nothing to do with money. It's just about the because one will put the it on the other.
It's the consistency.
Yeah, the sheetrockers like, no, that's and then the painter's like, no, this is because
You know what I have seen what I've seen would be an ideal solution. It's just the market doesn't like it.
mm,
Like when you go to Texas, we've traveled to different places. You see this textured wall here.
yeah,
That's a bit extreme, but
mm-hmm,
the idea is when you go to these other homes, they have a slight texture to it.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Well, guess what? That solves the problem.
yeah, It's
But,
true.
here everybody wants slick ceilings, slick,
Yeah.
and then you got a military base
Oh
that's
yeah.
like right here that, is all the time, shaking the homes or whatnot. We've actually had to put in a disclaimer in a lot of our agreements and make clients know that,
Mm-hmm.
hey, we're doing a walkthrough, everything's great. Then you get a call back a week later and you got a stress fracture, a stress
Mm-hmm.
crack in your finishing or whatnot. And they're thinking it's a structural issue when actually it's no, you live like 2 miles off
It's
of the
so
military
true.
base
That's so true.
and they're shaking your home
Right.
and your home's not meant to move.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
And I actually
Yeah.
had to witness that firsthand on a house we were
Mm-hmm.
closing. We was meeting with the homeowner, shook hands, signed the punch list documents. Everything was good to go. And we was in the garage.
Mm-hmm.
Garage doors open. We had just finished up in there. Had just walked the job, inspected it. Everything was great.
Mm-hmm.
And they lived. This is what I'm talking. They lived like 2 miles right off the range.
Yeah.
You know, and we heard the loudest boom, and the
Mm-hmm.
garage door shook and rattled.
Mm-hmm.
And we all kind of like, wow, that was intense. Started carrying on the same conversation, but we're in the garage and we're talking and we're, just, well, hey, yeah, everything's great. And look, crack right there in the ceiling.
Wow.
And we had just finished inspecting. So we knew that it
Yeah.
wasn't there and it happened just then while the house shook. And that's where I was like, no, wait a minute. And they're looking at me like, "Uh, we've
Mm-hmm.
never been in that situation. Guess what ended up happening?
Mm-hmm.
I had to go in there and fix it.
Yeah.
But moving forward, guess what? That's in our documents now.
Mm-hmm.
Because, it's hard to change in the middle of something. So guess what? We had to do that,
Mm-hmm.
fix it because there was a certain expectation there. We never talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
We could have tried to argue it, but you know
Right.
what? We ate it, we went and fixed it. But in the future documents, in the future
Mm-hmm.
conversations,
Learn from it.
now we use that and we don't have that problem no more. And I just see that's one thing if I could say I wish a lot of trades would get,
Mm-hmm.
subcontractors and whatnot, is to adapt a similar philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Paying for our education, paying for our tuition, and not expecting other people to
Mm-hmm.
pay for our tuition, our education. Because we
Mm-hmm.
all say that we're the best. We all say we want to
Yeah.
be the best.
Right.
But when it comes time to pay those tuitions,
Mm-hmm.
we all looking for Pell Grants.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it's been a pleasure
Yeah.
meeting with you, getting to know you a
Likewise.
little bit better. Look forward to working with you.
Mm-hmm.
And guys, this is Raphael with Constructive Conversations. I hope you've gotten some nuggets out of this. Be sure to like, comment, follow, and subscribe.
Hey, my name is Derrick Carter with CNC Professional Painting, and I just had a constructive conversation with Raphael Locklear. Check it out on YouTube and on Spotify.